Welcome into the Mountain Brook High School Athletics YouTube channel. I'm William Galloway, the Communications Director for Mountain Brook Schools. Privileged to be joined by class of 2019 graduate Emily Henderson. A lot of people think that Trendon Watford might be the only person from the class of 2019 associated with the NBA, but they would be incorrect because Emily is a content producer for the San Antonio Spurs, who are currently in the NBA Finals. Emily, thank you for making time to talk with me during while the finals are going on.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. I think when you reached out initially and you were like, "Do you have any time in the finals?" It's nice when they're away, when they're back in town. We're really all hands on deck. So good timing, and what a time to be able to talk about basketball
Yeah,
and the career it's brought me to.
talk hoops, talk about, you getting your start at Mountain Brook. So, just going back over that, yes, you're 25 years old, class of 2019 graduate, and you've worked for Alabama football, Alabama athletics, the NFL, New York Giants. And so tell us a little bit about your career and what you started doing in Mountain Brook to get where you are today. And I'll ask you, for some stories along the way.
100%. I think sitting here in the finals, I never had a goal in high school of how am I going to get to the finals? What is my path? I never even thought like that. I was just playing basketball and trying to keep good grades and get a full academic ride to Alabama. So, to anyone that thinks, I want to be at this level or I want to be this in 10 years, sometimes I'm like, just encourage you to focus where you're at because I would have never known the steps it took to get here. But it did start with photography class at Mountain Brook High School. My 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, I took AP Photo 1 or Photo 1, Photo 2, Portfolio Enhancement, and then AP Photography with Miss Morgan, and just kind of got the reins of something that was a creative outlet, just a skill set that scratched this itch. My sister took the class before me. She did really well. I thought, why not give it a go? And never thought of it as much of a career. I was very focused in English and writing and knew the journalism route was probably going to be something I'd look into or even athletic training and just kind of kept up the habit. And next thing I know, some of my friends are babysitting in college, and I'm like, maybe I can make better money doing grad shoots. So just kind of started getting to know girls that were older and shooting for grads, shooting for SGA government campaigns, and just kind of kept a camera in my hand and was a resource for somebody when they knew, oh, I need a photo. Who do I know? Let's see if Emily can squeeze something in before class starts. And that just kind of created its own world.
Yeah. With social media allows you to have a network and create your own network, create your own brand. And some people turn it into a business, some people have it as a hobby. But it's a great way to gain experience, right? You start at that low risk level you talk about and learning and through high school and classes and things like that. And you build your brand and you make connections with people throughout SGA and things like that. So what made you want to go the sports route? I know you played basketball at Mountain Brook, but obviously working now in one of the most premier fields at a championship level in the NBA Finals, you've made a quick jump rising through NFL films, the NFL, and the NBA. Tell us how you ended up in San Antonio.
I didn't do anything for photography and sports till my junior year in college, actually. Freshman and sophomore year, I was a part of a program, Crimson Tide Productions, and we were the live broadcasting student leg of what would be ESPN and SEC Network for broadcasting, all of the varsity level sports at the university. So I was a camera operator my freshman and sophomore year, behind those big cameras that get ISO shots on the coach or players and had a headset on, and my job was to listen to the director and try to build a story shot by shot and frame by frame. But that had nothing to do with photography. That was just storytelling, video, and game presentation. And by doing that, it kind of showed me, I mean, I like sports. I've always liked sports. I like storytelling and creating a sense of feeling through a screen. But I didn't like standing up and just being quiet and taking directions. I like to talk, I like to communicate. And so after doing 2 years of that, I made a decision and prayed a lot through it of what does this next step look like to leave this department or this program in Alabama and figure out what do I want to do. And I still had this love for basketball and got connected to the basketball operations, assistant and I got to be a volunteer manager for women's basketball my junior year. It was unpaid work. It was around 40 hours a week. You were basketball in one hand, Gatorade towel, getting ready to wipe up their sweat in the other, trying to fit in my laundry, my sorority experience, my academics, and then the players' laundry and the players' practice. Like it taught a new level of grit, but it put me in the game. It put me in the arena. And I studied news media with a sports concentration, which was very journalism focused. I think, William, we shared in that degree.
Absolutely. Best degree you can
Um,
get at Alabama.
it is. It was a fun one too. And just being able to know if I'm learning one aspect in the classroom, I have to be able to not only be there in just the educational realm, I need to be there physically. We're at one of the top athletic departments in the nation. I need to be there. And that open door came from what would some people assume a not very glamorous job. A lot of grunt work and sacrifice, but it gave me access to a basketball gym. I got to shoot hoops. It gave me a repertoire with coaches and players. And my first moment putting photography and basketball together was actually shooting behind the scenes for the media day. Our women's basketball team, as wonderful as the new facility that just got built in Tuscaloosa is right now, you know, they're just not getting a ton of coverage. And so I was like, how can I make this moment even more special for these players that are now, some of my friends? How can I give them something? And a camera and photo was always something that came naturally and a gift I wanted to give. So hung around for their media day that was being shot at Coleman Coliseum, took behind the scenes pictures. Our SID, Cami at the time, I sent the photos to her. I said, hey, can you give these to the girls in case they want them or post them or whatever? And she asked if she could post them on the women's basketball account. I said, for sure. And that was my first like moment to have content I made exist outside of just a shared album
Yeah.
between me and the individual. It went out to the world. And I mean, it didn't shake the ground. It wasn't anything groundbreaking in terms of content, but it was my first taste of, oh, what I can do can be an interest to more than just me and the person in the photo. So it just kind of built from there. And then by the time my junior year was ending, Alabama football was actually hiring a student recruitment photographer. And the only two requirements listed in that job bio were full-time UA student and experience with athletes.
Check and
And
check.
full-time and experience with athletes. They wanted someone that could be accountable and could definitely act like they'd been there before because football is the bigger beast. Women's basketball, Alabama football, there's levels to this game, and we were going up.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a quick hiring process. And by second semester of my junior year, I was balancing women's basketball and football. And
So
that
you
kind of
didn't give up the women's basketball baton. You were able to do both.
not initially. I ended up having to make a decision on which one to go more 100% in and decided, I think, within my first 2 months, my senior year, before the season even started, I just was able to have a conversation and know my all and my I didn't want to do anything halfway. And so my full attention was going to have to go to one or the other. And with a full year of basketball experience and only a few months of the football experience, I knew I had really gotten everything out of what basketball could have given me. And I built those relationships so they could extend beyond me just being in the gym. So I was confident in that road and what I had built and made the decision to really see what good old Nick Saban had up his sleeve. And we didn't win the championship that year. We got to go to New Orleans and beat Kansas State, and we had a good ride. But I wanted to put all my eggs in that basket, and it paid off. Some of the best recruits in the nation, some great recruiting trips, some good steak and lobster with Nick Saban and Miss Terry.
Whoa,
Uh,
whoa, whoa. Hold
some
on.
good
Tell
moments
me
there.
about that. Tell me about that.
They would
Because
have
not
Saturday.
everybody can say they've sat across the table and broke bread with Nick Saban.
Yeah, I can't say I was across the table. I was in the room
You were in
and
the
I had
room.
a
Okay.
seat at a table. Um, and we would have recruiting visits throughout the season in the summer. And Saturday, when we were in off season or preseason, was our big push day. A lot of athletes were coming in, seeing the facilities, and then at night they would kind of pitch the university to these families, and then we'd yeah, like you said, we'd break bread and we'd had a buffet up in the top of the north end zone at the stadium.
Wow.
And that came with its good share again of the lobster and the steak and the dessert bar and the pasta bar. And a lot of these families would, bring a lot of people. And I remember one of my favorite stories was looking across the table and Nick Saban's eating with a little baby in his right arm and just smiling ear to ear, talking to these parents and these kids. And he's just, just almost honestly being like a grandfather to this child that was part of a recruit's family. And you got to see Nick Saban as a human, not just the GOAT, the king of, sports in Tuscaloosa. But yeah, it was a great experience. But it started from doing a job that I knew I didn't want to do in curbside productions, had a great experience. What do I like? What do I don't like? Reevaluated, pivoted to something I was really passionate about that came with not a lot of monetary or timely perks, some would say. And then that prepared me to have the open door for football where I really did love it. I loved who I worked with. I loved the opportunities I got. Um, Again, hard work, long hours, lots of time in the summer. But when you are in the right space, you kind of feel alive despite being very drained. And I know you felt that too when you were at Alabama and working your high school football game live segments and stuff. So it's there.
Absolutely. So you get to graduate college, and what's next in terms of where you're looking to go? You're from Mountain Brook, and did you
Yeah.
look at trying to come back to Birmingham? There's not obviously a huge professional sports market here. So how did you decide on where to end up?
I luckily and maybe misfortunately, but I think luckily I had one option when I graduated college. There was one open door, and it happened to be the biggest door I had applied for. I got accepted to be a creative producer intern at NFL Films. So that background coming from football and definitely having Nick Saban on the portfolio, the resume carried its weight, as well as who I had built and become in that career. Had to do, I think, five interviews in one written test. There were four
You thought
in
you were done with tests because college was over, and
no,
little did you
no,
know.
yeah. Yeah, we had to pitch ourselves, pitch our written exam and wait after all those interviews. So I started applying for jobs I would say September, October of my senior year. Probably, kid you not, applied to maybe like 60 or 70 jobs, everything from minor league soccer and hockey and in MLB, to, University of Kentucky and other SEC programs of the caliber looking for producers or photographers or marketing director liaisons, positions of that nature. And I didn't hear back or got plain out rejected. And the only yes that just kept occurring was NFL Films. So it was interesting to look back and say, why wouldn't the minor league baseball team want to give me an interview, but NFL Films does?
Yeah.
Where's the caliber? But I really think it just kind of is uh, people will see your value and there will be favor where there needs to be. So when I actually finally got the job, I applied for it in December, got accepted right before spring break in March, and had about 2.5 months to realize I think I'm moving to the middle of nowhere, New Jersey for 10 weeks post grad and gonna learn from the best Emmy award-winning producer. So it made the decision easy when it was the only decision to make.
You got one on the table and you take it. I was in a similar position. Okay, so you go to New Jersey and those 10 weeks come and go, and then what's next for you?
It was actually 8 weeks that
8
came and
weeks.
gone because as soon as I got to New Jersey, I knew I was like, I do not want to drive back 18 hours to Birmingham, Alabama with this great opportunity and be unemployed. There's this fire underneath me of like, we got to keep this momentum. We got to keep it coming because 10 weeks, it's August. And what am I going to do? And so as soon as I got to New Jersey and got settled, 3 or 4 nights a week, I'd spend an hour applying for jobs, fixing my resume, my portfolio, tailoring things, and just sending, sending, sending. And one of the jobs that I applied for right when I got to New Jersey was with the New York Giants as a photo intern. and I applied 2 months earlier. So it was around that 8 week mark, really, or maybe 6 weeks prior, and I'd heard nothing back. Even kind of forgot that I applied for it, except I had a tip. I had an Excel spreadsheet. Every job I applied for, its location, its pay, any details I had, so I could keep track of what I got ghosted by, what I heard back
Wow.
by.
That's
So
impressive.
just stayed, yeah, I was like very organized and wanted to follow through on things. And got an email on a Wednesday. Hey, this is New York Giants. We'd like to interview you tomorrow for our photography internship position. Obviously, jumped at the bit, took that interview. And then the next day, I got hired. And then they said, you have 10 days to get to East Rutherford, New Jersey. We've got OTAs, we've got spring training practice starting August 10th. And it was the end of July. And
So you're
I,
nearby, which helps.
yeah, they're nearby, but the only thing I packed was 10 weeks of summer clothes for New Jersey. So I am thinking through logistically, where am I going to live? How am I going to get back to Alabama to then park and then drive all the way back? I'm calling my parents, I'm praying, I'm seeking wisdom and counsel, and I'm also like, I would be a fool not to take this. To have my second career opportunity, stay in this NFL realm,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to make it work. We're gonna make it work. And we made it work. We didn't even have time to put a 2 weeks notice in to NFL Films. I wrapped up all the projects I was working on, which was actually Hard Knocks with the New York Jets. So that was cool to be a part of that and then step away and actually be in the NFL world. Was a really cool parallel that really only happened once the season started. And wrapped things up, left 4 days later, and drove 18 hours back, packed my car up for what would be 7 months of life in New Jersey, right outside of New York City, and lived in an Airbnb where I afforded one rental bedroom in an Airbnb and lived with four other strangers I had never met
Wow.
because that was all I could afford. And it
Chasing a
was,
dream. I mean,
yeah,
right?
truly.
You
I
got one bed
packed everything
and
in my
the clothes
car.
on your back. Wow.
Packed everything in my car. I had a room that was about 12 minutes away from the practice facility. But you could roll on the bed and hit the wall, and you could roll to the other side of the bed and hit your dresser, and you couldn't even open your one door closet without jumping on the bed to then get to the one open spot in the room where it was big enough to open the
So
door.
basically, you had the Harry Potter closet under the stairs.
Man, man, it worked. I had a place to lay my head. I shared a bathroom with four other people. I shared a kitchen with four other people, and two of those four I still keep up with today. They're now 63 and 81 years old. So it was like
Oh, these
a
weren't people your own age. Wow.
no, I was the youngest. I was a 23-year-old single female in the middle of an Airbnb with four adults. The youngest at the time was probably in their 50s.
So maybe like premium adult, right? You had just entered adulthood and these were premium adults. All right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now Detroit is on the resume with the Pistons. So when does you mentioned 7 months
Yeah.
with New York and the Giants? So then NFL to the NBA transition. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was less quick. Going from NFL films to not even being able to finish that job to then taking the NFL New York Giants position. Those 7 months came and went. We didn't win too many games, but we learned a lot and had a lot of fun. Um, and came back home, drove the 18 hours back home. I
And did you
was
know, sorry to interrupt, that was going to be just a 7 month stint, or did you think there may be an opportunity for a full-time offer after that?
It was very clear, like this is an internship. The way the department was laid out was they just filed through interns. They had their full-time staff, their freelancers that were local, and then they had their interns come through. And I was the only photo intern. So unless you were gonna take away the senior photographer's role, there was no manager of photography at the time or
Hmm.
assistant photographer. So it gave me access to the peak of the pyramid. My boss was the guy, but there just wasn't career hierarchy to slot anything in. But got a great rec, had great ending interviews. No bad vibes, no ill wishes. I do remember our head of content, Christine. She looked at me and she was like, "Emily, I think you can make it." I think you can make it in this business. And I didn't make it with them. I didn't get a job, but
Hmm.
that definitely was very encouraging. So to drive back to Alabama, I hadn't seen my family. I only saw them once in that 7 months. I missed Thanksgiving. I missed Christmas. I was dog sitting for a coach's family on Christmas.
Wow.
Um, just so a lot of sacrifices, a lot of time and family things missed. Had, I think, a friend or two get married, couldn't go to that. You look back and you're like, wow, like, you hope it was worth it, but I knew the Lord had called me there and I wanted to be faithful where I was at, and that meant saying no to some things, and that just came at a price. But coming back to Alabama, I was very happy to be able to leave New Jersey. I miss the South, I miss the weather, I miss the SEC country. I miss my family, obviously, and I started again applying for everything. And the same vigor that I applied for jobs my senior year of college was matched again now a year later, coming into that March of 2024. And I was actually unemployed at that time for 6 months. I didn't have a job, but I was babysitting, dog sitting. I was doing some weddings, engagement shoots, still keeping busy, but still very focused on the next thing. And that was with the Detroit Pistons. They had a content associate program that wanted game pres experience and content experience. So that Crimson Tide Productions experience that I had freshman and sophomore year really paired well with what I had learned NFL films and New York Giants wise. So that was in July, and moved up there in August, and had, I think that at that point it was going to be 8 month seasonal internship. So full-time hourly employee with the Detroit Pistons. Had to move really quick again, didn't know where to go, had the
I'm sensing a
suggestion.
pattern here.
Yeah, yeah, they're quick. So if you want to work in sports, get ready to move. Get ready to move, and have a car with good trunk space.
Sign a month-to-month lease.
Yes, yes. And at this point, I didn't even get the luxury of a month-to-month lease. I ended up calling a local pastor in Detroit and sending out cold emails to anybody that could give me advice on where to live in Detroit. I had no prior knowledge of anything about the area, and got an email back from this one pastor. He said, call him the next day. Called him, took notes of, all of his advice or opportunities that could be a good fit to where I could live, because I had about 3 weeks to figure it out. And he actually mentioned that there was a family there that oftentimes would rent out their third floor suite area to grad students or doctoral students or even missionaries who'd come visit. And he was going to see if the room would be open. And next thing I know, I'm in a group text with this husband and wife, and they're videoing what my room could look like. Emily,
Wow.
this is where you would stay. This is your bathroom. And it was an upgrade from New Jersey. I had more space. I had a bed. I had my own bathroom. I've made it. I've got it. And I had a closet that could open up regularly with the space that it had. And I lived with a family in Detroit with their 3 boys under the age of 5 and their grandmother. And
Oh
that
my
was one of the
goodness.
biggest blessings. It was one big family in the heart of Detroit, 7 minutes away from the practice facility. And yeah, you just built that relationship and still keep in contact today. You can kind of see this white piece of paper. That is the
Yeah.
Christmas card her boys drew for me, and they mailed it to me while I was here.
See, I was going to
So
ask if you took their Christmas card in return, right? A little good for trade here. Maybe
I
cut a
I
dock a month's
I
rent for a
I
Christmas card.
took their Christmas card. That was
There
one
you
of the
go.
choices. I was like, I'd be happy to take your family Christmas card photo. So, that's how I got to Detroit. Applied, interviewed again, got the job, realized I had to move, made a connection with a pastor, found a family. Family was willing to have me. Met them the day I moved in, started work 2 days later, and we
Man.
were we were on the ground
All right. So
in
how did they do that season? How did the Pistons do?
They were on the come up. They had their worst performing year, I think around 14, 15 wins the year before. I was like, I don't know if I'm the good luck charm, but they had around 33, 34 wins that year. So they were peaking up. Cade Cunningham was really putting his mark on the game. Isaiah Stewart, or Beef Stew, was really kind of becoming more of a post player. And it was a fun thing to see the city rally behind. And there also was the NFL team, the Detroit Lions. So between that and then the Tigers for the MLB team, it was a rocking place to be between basketball improvement, football making a good run, baseball around the corner. It was something you don't really experience in
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Professional
Just with
sports town
that.
for sure,
Hmm.
which we don't have. All right, so that happens. And then all of a sudden, here you are a year later in San Antonio. So match those puzzle pieces for me. Um, you know, uh, free agency, trade market. What was happening with Emily Henderson to
Yeah.
go south back to San Antonio?
Yeah. That was my second winter to actually have. I had a New Jersey, New York winter, and then a Detroit winter. And I knew, I was like, I have had enough cold for the rest of my life. We are going to try to hit that North Carolina, Texas, Florida pocket.
Yeah,
That's going to be the ideal place to land for this next opportunity. Um, Another, I guess, slight piece of advice is when you have these, internships or associate seasonal roles, like stay on that application time because some things open earlier than others. And so around Christmas, that was 5 months before my program with the Pistons would end up ending. I was already applying for things. And in February, the Spurs had they had a job open for a content producer. Just kind of hit Teamworks Online where I was applying, and I saw the requirement, and I was like, oh, like it's really everything I'm doing with the Pistons, but in the South
yeah.
and full time. And
Good Mexican
so
food. I mean, there's
they,
stuff
there's a
going
lot
for
of
me here.
perks. Yeah, there's a lot of perks. And so I was like, I'm going to apply. And lo and behold, they were some of the fastest interview processes I had. Um, three I had three interviews and a three-part editing test. So the tests aren't done, everyone. They aren't done. They're not multiple choice anymore. You actually have to just make
Do the
things.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. A three-part editing test. And within the date I applied and the date they called me to offer me the job was less than 3 weeks. So by middle of February, and then with my 2 weeks notice in Detroit, I was out by March 13th.
Okay.
And I was able to kind of negotiate a start date that allowed me to actually be back in Birmingham for when my sister gave birth to my niece. So that was a huge blessing to be present, be a part of that big family moment. After missing so much
Yeah.
in that regard, that was such an answered prayer to be able to be back. And I started late, um, late April, early May when I got to San Antonio. So I'm coming up around 14, 15 months here. And to have my first 15 months take me to the finals, it's a pinch me moment. I'm
Right.
very fortunate. It's kind of funny for me to be like, wait, we don't win like this all the time. Like this is all
Yeah.
I know. I'm an Alabama fan. I'm
I was
used to
gonna
winning.
say you get spoiled when you're doing Alabama football, and then you're like, how do I return to that level of success? Okay, so I got to ask you, working with, alongside, capturing, however you want to phrase it, Victor Wembanyama, what's that like? Because he is an absolute freak of nature in the best way. And I
Mhm.
can only imagine the stories you have from him ducking in tunnels to, the runouts to just head and shoulders. He's taller than everybody else on the floor. So how do you literally see that and see him through your camera lens?
I zoom out a lot more with him on the screen. When I'm shooting courtside, we're right underneath the goal. So sometimes if you see a blonde, curly-haired girl with the Spurs game by the bench, you're like, "There's Emily. She's there. I'm shooting the game." Yeah, we zoom out a lot. He takes up a lot more of the frame at 7'4". But I like to describe it like when you're walking up to Vic or next to Vic, it's like going into point 0.5 mode on your camera where it stretches everything out. That's like visually how it feels with your eyes to be next to him because everything is skewed to scale. So not only is he tall, he's talented, he's very thoughtful, well-mannered. I think one thing I've definitely learned from him, I shoot a lot of our press conferences, and so I see him get asked every question after most games, and I see how he responds to all these questions, and he always takes a second, he pauses, he thinks. For English not to be his second language, he's more articulate than some of players that are American. And getting to see him just stand underneath the goal and just hold the net with his hand is it's unreal to be able to. at one point hold his shoe, and it's literally this big.
It's like a
Um,
canoe paddle, right?
it it is, yeah. You don't think you're like, I don't think giants are among us, and then you see the way he plays and who he is, and you're proven wrong time and time again. So not only a freak of nature, but a very pleasant person to be around from the limited time that we have. We're not around the players all the time,
Sure.
but always a respectful and enjoyable experience to be around any of our Spurs players and our Spurs staff.
Yeah. All right. So I got some quick hitters for you, but before I do that, I want to ask you about the NBA Finals, because that is, as we mentioned at the beginning of this interview, that's one of the top,
Mhm.
grossing, top entertaining. You just look at the ticket prices in New York, right? And one of the most captivating championship sporting events there can be. So tell me a little bit about what's that like. Are you on the sidelines? Are you on the baseline? Are you moving, capturing content throughout the arena? Kind of tell me where you're going to be coming up for Game 5.
Coming up for the past two home games that we've had for the finals, it's, security's pretty strict. This is the place to be. Like Madison Square Garden was rocking, San Antonio is rocking too. And for pregame, we're kind of a little bit of everywhere. We're by the court shooting warm-ups. We're getting the players interacting with fans, or in San Antonio's cases, some nuns. If y'all have seen that kind of hit the social media spread a little bit. Once the game starts, I am actually stationed up in the 200s level. So I get a really cool wide angle of crowd pops, fans going crazy. I'm kind of isolating on half the court, getting a really wide view. We have one producer on the court, two producers at our 100 and plaza level. Those are probably more of the angles that you'll see from like a highlight perspective. It's like a slight look down. You're not quite eye to eye like you're on the court. And then my perspective comes from up top. But I got to shoot one of our last games actually from the rafters. So I was up in the ceiling, bird's eye view, looking
Are
down
you
from
strapped
that
in on
perspective.
that? Like, do you have a harness, or are you just
Our
maybe your
cameras
cameras
are
are strapped in?
our cameras are strapped. We have a neck strap. They're on a tripod. We're also holding that tripod. Us as the individual, we are not. We're free roaming, but you definitely think through everything you do a lot more because there's no room for error to have that much equipment that high up over one of the most valuable games in sports going on right now. But I will say, in terms of the energy and the atmosphere, it's electric. There's way more media, there's way more cameras, there's just way more press. It's just a lot of people. There's a lot of NBA people from New York that come down. San Antonio is a smaller market team, so when you see a smaller market team be, outnumbered, maybe it's by Knicks fans or even just NBA employees, it puts things to scale to just how big and powerful the NBA is as an organization to be able to run such a seamless finals presentation from game one to what hopefully can be a game seven win for the Spurs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, 2 minutes left here, so we're going to run through some quick hitters as we wrap things up here with Emily Henderson, who's a content producer for the San Antonio Spurs. Emily, best NBA game you've shot or been a part of?
Best NBA game. Christmas Eve, New York Knicks, we win. Jalen Brunson, I think, had around 40 points, and yet we still were able to come back and win. At that point,
The
um,
we here is Detroit or San Antonio?
San Antonio,
Okay.
Spurs versus New York Knicks, Christmas Eve, or excuse me, not Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. I got to be home for Christmas. New Year's Eve, the strike's gonna, clock's gonna hit midnight, fireworks are gonna go off, and we want to have that win underneath our belt. And I got to shoot courtside for that game. So despite not shooting courtside for the playoffs versus the Knicks, I have shot courtside, Spurs versus the Knicks. We win that game. We go back, we're editing and coloring our footage. The clock's getting closer to midnight. I'm actually able to leave the office to go to my car to head out. And we're up kind of on this hill ridge, and I'm able to park my car. And although, it's more of a lonelier moment being alone in an empty, arena parking lot, I got to watch all of the San Antonio fireworks from a perspective, and I saw probably about 20 firework shows.
Wow.
Um, from the Frostbank Arena parking lot after a Spurs win on New Year's Eve. And so
That's
that was a
awesome.
spectacular way to welcome in 2026.
All right, last one, about 15 seconds. Favorite Alabama recruit, or maybe someone who stood out to you, who you loved, and getting to know them through the recruiting process.
I did get to shoot Arch Manning. He obviously went over there. Um, Caleb Downs was really special. Ryan Williams, I know Caleb's with Ohio State. Ryan Williams was always really special. Jalen Mbakwe, who was a running back for us. Um, there was just a lot of people that are no longer with Alabama. We recruited them. They committed. Saban ended up leaving. They left too. So I won't name drop too much now that they're not quite affiliated, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of fun memories and just great to be in that environment with some of the top high school talent and now getting to see it from a adult perspective with NBA players. Football players are really big, and now you look up even higher
Yeah.
coming from an
Well,
NBA background.
Zoom is kicking me out. So, Emily, thank you for your time and the opportunity to share your story and your experience from Mountain Brook all the way to the NBA Finals. Best of luck to the Spurs the rest of the way.
Thank you, everybody. Go Spartans.